So many books and too little time. There are so many good books out there. There are some that I didn't get to. Hey everyone, my name is Amanda and I'm the Fun Size Reader, and it is day 19 of Bookmas, and today we are going to be talking about books that I didn't get to in 2022 that I had every intention of getting to. We always use the phrase, so many books, so little time. And I feel like that rule is my life. Most people who are alongside me building TBRs, there is no way we will ever read everything that we want to read. There are just too many amazing books out there. I do my best to try to make a dent in what I want to read all year long. But there are some that slipped through the cracks this year. I think a big part of that for me is because I am such a mood reader, right? I could totally be in the mood to read a certain book. I'll go get it. I'll download it on my Kindle, whatever. And then I'll start it. And then I'll be like, nah, this isn't the mood. This isn't the mood. So I'll put it away and I'll get something else. A big way that I can usually figure that out is if it takes me forever to get into, if I take a really long time to start up, it's not usually the book. It's usually that it's just, I'm not in the mood for it, because I could read the same book later, weeks, months, years later, and fly right through it. It does not matter. The ones that I have on my list today are books that I had every intention of reading in 2022. Every intention, and I just failed at doing it. We're going to start off with the one that most of you have asked me about already, and that is Charm. I had every intention of reading this in November, and then November came, and then the book came, and then I was reading other things. I was finishing Zodiac 7. Then A Shadow in the Ember came, and I was more in the mood for A Shadow in the Ember than Hudson and Grace. I feel like there are a lot of elements as to why I haven't been in the mood to read this book. I feel like it's a step backward. I feel like we already know what happens. I lost that drive to read it because we already know they end up together. We already know that they choose each other. If this would have come right after Crave, I would have been eating it up because we didn't know what was going to happen. And a lot of times, for me, I have a really hard time reading a book where I already know what's going to happen. So these prequels that come out years later, or books that I read after I watch the whole show or watch the whole movie or whatever, sometimes I struggle really getting into. And that I felt like was the case with this because we already know what's going on. And this is after the fact, just to explain it. So I really haven't been in the mood for this as much as other books that I didn't know what was going to happen. It was still surprising and exciting and made me want to pick them up. So that's why I've been pausing on this one so much. My mood just hasn't been there to try to get through this huge ass book with all of these tiny, tiny little words for a story that I know how it ends. Another one that I didn't get to was one that you guys voted for me to read, and I have reasons why I didn't get to this. I'm gonna have to speed up on getting to this book because the Shadow and Bone season 2 little trailers and hints and day of release have already started coming. So I know I'm gonna need to read Six of Crows before the second season comes out. The reason why I didn't read this is because my husband wants to read it too. A lot of times, if there's a book that both of us want to read at the same time so we can prepare to watch a show together, we'll audiobook it together. We just haven't really been driving many places together enough to be in an audiobook. That's part of the reason why I haven't gotten to this one, but I'm going to need to because I need to be prepared for the show. Another one that you voted for from my backlist that I just never got to was Kingdom of the Cursed. Liked the first book, didn't ever feel like I was in the mood to start the second one. And then the third one came out and everyone was saying, oh my gosh, this isn't a YA book anymore. This is super spicy. And so I'm intrigued, but I still feel like I'm coming off of how I felt about the first one and how there were elements of it that I wasn't super jazzed about. But now there's this expectation that the third one was good. I should get to this now that I have a completed series that I can just read. That's fine. Like, I can do that. But I just never got to this one. Forging Silver into Stars was another one that I ran out to buy. I think I bought it opening weekend because I was coming off of really loving Defy the Night from Bridget last year. Forging Silver into Stars is not the same world as Defy the Night. It's actually the same world as A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I wasn't a super fan of that series, but I love Defy the Night. And so this one, I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. But then I just kept getting in my head about it being in the same world as A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So I didn't ever get to it. In true Amanda fashion, there were quite a few series that I didn't finish because I just didn't ever get to the next or the last book. Bloodlands is the next book in the Savage Lands series, and I stopped and I didn't get there, and I know now the series is complete. I think it's complete, so I need to just get there, but I was giving myself a break because I was starting to feel like things were getting too repetitive. I needed to take a break from that. I did see recently, though, that Savage Lands is now on KU. So that may be a little bit more enticing for me, that I can just queue it up on my Kindle. I don't have to wait for my copy to get here and just read the rest of it. Ooh, the next one was Glow. I really had every intention of reading this book, and I started it. I got about 25% into the book, and then I had to put it down. My mood was not vibing with it. I don't really know why I put it down. I just was not compelled to keep reading it. And I don't want to call it a DNF. I do want to read the series. I do want to see what happens. I do like the series, but I just did not feel the oomph to read that book when I was reading other things at the same time. The length, I think, was pretty intimidating to me. And the fact that it started off with so many different perspectives and time differences from other characters' points of view. And it just was very jarring compared to what the original books were. So I was less drawn to keep going. I still really want to read it. I still will read it. I just don't know when. There are quite a few books that are not queued up on my Kindle, but like in a list that I keep that are all on Kindle Unlimited that people have recommended or that I've seen or whatever. And I just like have this running list. And so pretty much most of those on that list did not make it. But this one in particular, I had quite a few friends recommend this book to me. And that's Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I do think that the size of this book also intimidated me. And I asked one of my good friends, I was like, did you cry? Is this a crier? And she said, it's really emotional. And I was like, not feeling that right now. I don't need to cry. I think it was very close to the time that I was reading Reminders of Him. And so I was like, I've cried enough. I don't need a crier right now. So I kind of held off. But now that there's going to be a second one, I'm like, okay, I need to. So maybe early in the spring. This one. Okay, I never got to this book. I started it. I never finished it. And I don't want to call it a DNF. The thing that turned me off about starting this book or reading this book and getting the review out to you guys for this book was all of the controversy and the negativity that was surrounding it on social media. I did not want to have anything to do with that. I didn't want my review to be lumped in with all of that. I am always honest with you guys, and I wanted to be able to give an honest review outside of the context of all the drama. I started reading it when all of that was happening, when the book first came out. But then I decided to put it down. I didn't think it was the right time for me to read it. And all of the drama was kind of getting to my mood about it. And I didn't want to have a negative perception going into reading the book. I didn't want my view to be tainted by what was going on. And it's going to be hard for me to go back and give it those fresh eyes because of everything that happened and because of all of the negativity and because of my worry about, my true opinion coming through in my review. I don't know when I'm going to read it. I don't know, but I did still want to. And that book is Light Lark by Alex Astor. My first impressions of what I did read of the book were that what I read was kind of confusing. And I am a fantasy reader. I world build constantly. That is not an issue for me. But I was kind of confused, and there was a lot of info dump telling that exhausted me. It got me to a point where I was sitting and I just put my Kindle down and I laid my head back and I just closed my eyes. That was a struggle for me. So that paired with all of the other hubbub about this book made me just go, I think now is not the right time. I'll come back to it later. I don't know when later is going to be. It makes me sad because I was really excited about reading this book. It was everything in the synopsis, in the storyline, in the idea, the concept that I liked, and I wanted to read it. Kind of made me sad that this one didn't make it into this year, but it didn't. And hopefully it'll make it into 2023, but I just don't know. The next one was a book that, again, I started and then I put down. And it wasn't necessarily because I didn't like it. I liked it. The Atlas 6 kind of made me feel dumb. I am one of those people that when I read a book, I see the movie in my head. I've learned recently that not everybody does that. My husband is one of those people. He does not see the movie in his head. He sees the words on the page. He does not see the movie. I see the movie most of the time. This book, I was struggling to see the movie. And sometimes I know if I start to read a book and I only see the words and I'm not seeing the pictures, or I'm having a harder time trying to pull the pictures out, I know that it's not a good book for me. Sometimes I'll fight through it. Other times I can't. This one, I was fighting through it and I was starting to get little snippets because I wanted to read it. It was interesting to me, but I felt dumb reading it. I did not make it very far before my brain was exhausted by how much I was thinking through reading. I think it was just not a good time for me to read it if I was that tired trying to read the book. And I've heard great things about it, and I've heard great things about her other stuff. So I do want to go back and read it. It just has to be at a time where I'm not so tired. The last one that I'm going to talk about today, I actually also started, but only really got through maybe the first chapter. But I have since become very invested in this author, and I've watched a ton of his YouTube content and listen to him speak in places, and I am really invested in him. I was part of his Kickstarter campaign, and so I'm really excited for his books to be coming to me all of next year in all the 4 quarters. But I really wanted to read more of his books before those got there. It didn't happen. I don't know when the first book is going to come in the first quarter of the year. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any updates come out yet for shipping or whatever. I wanted to be more familiar. I have read one of his books before. It was a YA book, but I wanted to get into his big universe. And so I wanted to read Mistborn, and I didn't get very far. But now I have heard him talk about Mistborn and this Mistborn world and the way he constructed it so much that I'm like, okay, I'm invested. I need to know, he didn't talk about a lot of spoilers and things, but I know how he came up with this plot and the different storylines and all this stuff. And so I'm like, I need to know. I need to read this book. probably should be a goal of mine to finish up as many of his Cosmere World books that I can so that like I get more Brandon under my belt. I know I could put so many more on this list, but those are the ones I'm going to talk about today. Those are the ones that I really felt like I should have read this year, but I didn't. And I'm hoping that there are some that I can prioritize for next year. If there are any on this list that you have read, that you have loved, that you want me to prioritize, or any that you want to read, that you want to see my review before you prioritize them, leave me a comment, let me know, and I will hopefully be in the mood earlier in 2023. Thanks so much for coming to day 19 of Bookmas. I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Fun Size Reader. See you guys next time.